the issue first. It took me ages to find this because it's well buried, but for some time we've had a kind of outstanding feature where we wanted to add a background jobs queue. Originally came up with the publish later module, which oh look, and it's got a whole lot of comments on how we could have done it, but the idea is that we have a background task infrastructure which runs tasks on a minute-by-minute schedule on a cron job, but doesn't actually allow us to have a queue where we can put jobs into a queue. So I had a little bit of time over the last couple of weeks and kind of needed the feature, so had a little crack at putting it together. And I found another issue as well, same thing, jobs queue. So the idea is it's got some similarities. People might know Marco's project, the courts.net, which is very much a jobs queue and much more around scheduling, and also may have used products like Hangfire, which I've used a lot in the past and had good success with kind of long-running background jobs, I suppose, or the ability to schedule them and rerun them. So I've implemented one for the publish later, which obviously the feature is still the same. So if we go down here, we pick that we want to publish it now, which is not exactly later, but for the purposes of a demo, it's a little bit quicker than waiting. So we'll push that. There's a little note that it's scheduled to be published at 8:30. And I built a bit of UI for this. I'm not really sure if it will want UI, but it was useful to keep track of things. So you can see here, there's a publish later job, which was edited just recently. Its current state is created. And if I run the scheduler, which is just a quick shortcut cut for testing, to be honest, we should see that this runs and has been executed. And then we can go back in here and have a look at the content item, which has now been published. The difference being, of course, that it hasn't sat there every minute checking the database to see if there's an item that should be published. It's just executed it on the schedule. So I can put another one in for a few minutes' time. Down here and have a look at the UI. And see that there's one here created. Because it's been published a number of times, it reuses the same job, but it'll run in 2 minutes. So even if I run the scheduler now, go back and have a look at this, it's ready to run in a minute, so it still hasn't run. And I've also got another one here, which has just been my testing one, which just logs some stuff to the log on the kind of schedules that I've been setting for it. And the UI is still kind of in preparation, and to be honest, I'm not even sure if we want it, but it became a little bit crucial to kind of keep track of things. So this publish later job is scheduled to run once in a minute. This log job 2, obviously the second one that I made, is scheduled to run on a cron tab, so it runs in this case every minute because it's a thing. So you see here you've got a whole bunch of instances which go through different states, and there's an example of the states here. Like I said, I'm not even sure if I'll keep this UI. It was just useful to see it and to see what I was kind of coming up with for ideas on it. There are a bunch of other states that a job might run through, and the possibility that might add a button here to retry a failed job. At the moment, the jobs will retry by default 10 times if they fail, if they have an exception, and they'll wait a minute before retrying. So one of the things that I was kind of looking for out of this feature was the ability to we orchestrate a lot of stuff with workflows through into Azure functions or external API calls, some of which may fail, some of which may succeed. So looking to be able to kind of orchestrate that a little bit better and start a workflow as an orchestration, move something that's going to be a little bit more long running that might take 3 or 4 minutes to a background job, have the background job run, check states, and then restart the workflow when it's actually completed. I don't know. One of the things that I kind of need to use it for is building Azure resources. So when you submit by the Azure API to create a resource, be it a blob storage account or a server that we're provisioning, you get a token back with an ID on it, and you have to poll to see when the resource is being created. So I'll be using background jobs to do that polling, to poll once every minute or something, check if it's created, and then re-invoke the workflow that was originally driving it. Yeah, so that's the demo, or that's the little bit of UI that you can see for it. It's got some, I guess, similarities between workflows, but it is kind of much more orientated at being code-based and driven from code.
Thank you. Questions from anyone? Okay, I have questions.
I knew you'd have questions. We'll want to have a look at some code and see what it does.
No, I have questions first. How do you pronounce scheduler? Some people say scheduler, scheduler. So there are so many pronunciations. Everyone is different.
I call it a schedule, but everyone, as you say. And I'm not even sure if schedule is a word, so it does get used commonly.
So Jean-Thierry made it at some point, or is it something that we already have, like a jobs queue view?
So what we have at the moment is the, do you mean the UI?
Yeah.
So if we turn on the UI for the background tasks,
okay,
which isn't on at the moment.
That's it.
Yeah. Then we get another one here, which is the tasks,
okay,
where we can edit the schedules of the tasks. So you'll see here that there is actually a background jobs task, which is the one that does the scheduling. That makes sense. And there's the workflows one, because I've got that turned on at the moment as well.
Okay, so yeah, fine. Then I just wanted to know if there was something that Jean-Thierry didn't push, and it was that. Then second question is terminology. I didn't understand at first, then I understood. Then I was like, if you had named things another way, I would have understood. Example, you code background jobs, okay, and you also have instances, and I'm like, instance, I'm like, it's all meta. What's the level of instance? So, and then I think that instance is everything that has already run and is done, right?
Well, not necessarily, because these ones here, the most recent instance, and ignore the bad UI here, please, has just been created. So it hasn't actually been run yet, so it's okay. Created.
Yeah, so yeah. I would, on my notes, I noted execution instead of instances, because it can be past or future, but instance is weird. It's not user-friendly. It might be developer-friendly to represent what it means technically, but 49 instances, that's weird. I would call it executions. Even if they are past or future executions, these are like executing a job. But instances, or maybe there is a better word, but I didn't like instances.
But executions totally works for me. If you look in the code, you'll see that everything is based around execution dates.
Okay.
The schedules are all based around execution dates, so it is about executing.
And the title of the page, background jobs, I would call it scheduled jobs, because I believe that it's the background. It's clear to me to say it's a scheduled thing. But yeah, background is technical, I think. And also what I would like to see is the next scheduled job, like the date of the next scheduled job, because I see created, I see executed, but in the lines here, because every scheduled job definition could display, you see here, you see 7 hours ago, which is when it was created, but the next execution, when is it? Like in 3 minutes, in 1 hour,
sure.
In 1 day?
You want to see this one?
Yeah, the next one.
As an execution date. Yeah.
The next one that will be executed, yes, when it is.
Makes sense.
Then I'd like to be able to pause and resume every job.
So essentially disable it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. I was imagining having some buttons over here for that. I wasn't sure if I'd allowed the UI to change the schedule, like change the CRON tab. Like it wouldn't hurt.
Well, you can keep the CRON tab, but have disable, enable, run now, run next, or something, like instantiate, which is wrong, but run now, which will create an instance and says, okay, executing. But yeah, so being able to like the scheduler in the task scheduler in Windows, all these things that you can do: stop, pause, run now, when is the next one, see all the previous ones, and so on. So yeah, just minimal changes, but
the instances themselves,
executions.
Because this is the executions. Yes, the executions. Was going to put a setting on them for whether you want to save your executions, how many to save, because they're all stored in the same JSON document or the same record. So not like workflows where we've got workflow types and workflow instances as kind of different records in the database. I wanted to try and keep it a little bit simpler than that.
Do you need a different table? Even if they are JSON documents, they should be independent and a different table.
You reckon? Like I mean, it's a very small thing. It's a small amount of size.
It will grow.
It is a lot.
And grow and grow. So.
Well, that was why I was going to put a restriction on it. By default, only save 100 of them, for example.
Yeah, but maybe someone wants to keep 1 million, and then you have the same issue. So just split it, and in parallel, optionally, yeah, you can provide some pruning behavior, but you need to split by default.
Okay, we can split it. I did it quickly to see, but
because tomorrow one execution will have so much log, just one. Even if it's run like every day, it will log so many things, and it will be all in the same JSON document. That will be unmanageable. It will fail.
Yeah, well, this one's running. Only been running for half an hour since I turned this machine back on again. Okay, well, we can split those out. It wouldn't. It's no harm.
Oh, it's easy. Just you can keep a JSON document, but one per instance.
The other thing I did, I changed my mind on this halfway through, is you see this publish later job has actually been run 3 times because it's the same content item that's saving it. So a new content item will create its own publish later job.
Ah, that's weird.
Well, it's a job. You know, you stick a job and you say this job is doing that thing.
What I think is weird
content
is
item.
it's in between, it's in the middle. And for me, it's wrong because it should be either one job per scheduled publishing or one publish later job for everything. And here you have a mix of that. It's like, oh, one per content item. What? Why?
Well, mostly because it's got the content item ID in it.
Yeah, but I mean, you could have a instance of the
have
parameter that is the
for
content
sure.
item ID.
But then it would want to execute at different times. Like this one wants to execute, 3 minutes ago.
Then you can have one job per schedule and done. So if I reschedule under one, I have another publish later job. So here
So that could be a thing as well. Yeah, I changed my mind halfway through.
Yeah, here it's in between, and I think it's whatever. For me, there are two options, and you took the third one, which can't be right. You took the only option that is wrong to me. You could have said, no, I prefer to have one item with n instances or n items with one instance, and you chose x times y. So that's, yeah. Maybe that's why you went back and forth, because you realize something is wrong here.
Well, I went back and forth because, 1 minute it looks like it's one job, and then you save it 3 times and it's actually 3 jobs. So should it be together? Should it be apart? It's literally of no issue to change it if people think that's weird. Like this one, probably on its display should display the content item title or something along those lines as well. So that you actually,
and that's why
what it was related to.
Intuitively, I would have one job per schedule. And if I schedule twice the publication of the same content item, I have 2 entries here with just one instance, next one, and no repeat. It's just
the next one just gets cancelled.
You can cancel it, and then when
if I schedule one, so if I schedule one for an hour's time. And then schedule it again.
Yep, you have 2 items.
2 hours time. With 2 items, one's cancelled.
And you can cancel one, and then it disappears from the list of scheduled.
Well, it would still probably show on this list because the list is what's is all of them. But we'll have I haven't done it now because I copied it over from the users module. I have a filter on status. Because sometimes you want to see that the job ran, or you want to see that it was cancelled. You want to know. That's the big pain with background jobs is like, did it actually work?
Well, you can still show them actually. Maybe you need a state to say they are run. There won't be any more instance, but they are done. They are run. There is one instance for that.
That will make sense.
Awesome. Thank you.
What else did I have about it that was weird that I kind of wanted to ask questions on? So the scheduler, the background task thing that we have runs the scheduler to check it every now and then, every minute. But then the queue itself is also run as a background task for a hosted service. So you end up with this, which just maintains a queue using a channel. So one of the other options, not audit trail options. So I gave options for retry attempt, for if it fails, which defaults to 10, an interval, and the number of concurrent jobs, so like jobs of the same type that can run at the same time. just by default unlimited, but you can have options there too.
By default, it should be limited.
Well, I mean, it's going to be limited by the queue size, and the queue takes however many threads, however many processes you've got by default. But
well, you should put one there.
Because that's what they won't all execute in parallel.
Yeah, but then then let me change the option to say, okay, 2 in parallel or 3 in parallel, but there should be 1 by default, because let's write the file, for instance. Oh, the file system is accessed and it's blocking everything, and you can retry, but it will never work. So it's just, if you know that you can run in parallel, you should allow to run in parallel.
Yeah, okay, you reckon?
And most of the tasks you showed us so far, they run one at a time, right?
Well, the publish later, as an example, would run. That could run in parallel because it would be two different items.
But even if they run one at a time, it's not an issue.
No, I mean they'll get picked up by the next scheduler. Part of it was because the scheduler only runs every minute, because that's the most granularity we currently have at the moment. So if I queue 5 of these jobs together to all run at the same time, they'll actually take 5 minutes to run, because one will get scheduled, it will run, then a minute later the scheduler will kick in and run another one, run the one that was blocked because it wasn't allowed to run.
Yeah, or you just bump all the queued one for this minute and run them serially or in parallel based on the parallelization value or concurrency value. And you don't say no, postpone to the next thing. You just skip the next one because you're still pumping something. And then when you're done pumped, if you have been over the 1 minute, you say, okay, now I'm late for the previous one, let's pump again. And so you catch up with all the work to do.
Yeah, I mean, it prioritizes based on how far it's out of the queue. But
it's just a while loop until there is nothing more to pump. That is done.
Yeah, but you don't want to pump too much stuff into the queue, because then you get too much back pressure. And you start running into difficulties where it's been pumped into the queue, but you can't track whether or not it gets executed.
What do you do then? You forget them forever? You say, oh, I missed the slot, so I...
No, it just gets picked up on the next run of the...
Yeah, I'm saying don't wait for the next one. If you know that someone should have been run. So 1 minute is passed, and 2 of them could not be run because the first 3 took 1 minute. Instead of waiting the next minute, you're like, no, okay, I've passed the minute, so I can trigger now for the one before, because they have priority now because they are late already. So it's just a while loop until you've caught up with everything. You don't need to trigger a new event because, I know already I'm late, so let's continue the work.
Okay, yeah, so you could track the concurrent ones as being delayed.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got a loop on...
And from the UI, you can see that, and you can say, no, pause this one, and then, or cancel this event, and then it won't be picked up.
Yeah, I don't know how well the infrastructure will support sitting in a loop like that for that long.
Can be lazy.
Like it's all...
You can just...
Yeah, but so the infrastructure itself that we kind of have at the moment is, a background service, so it's a hosted service. So it already runs in a while loop, but it's awaiting every task. So when it actually runs, if any of these tasks, any of these background tasks that we have are long running, like if they take 5 minutes, none of the schedules get fired. so they just all start to back up and be late. Yeah.
Maybe there is another state which is acquired or ready to start or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got executing at the moment.
Because executing means it's running, but you could have something that says, oh, I've been picked up to be run as soon as possible.
Well, I've got a priority there, so that could probably
Like ready.
do it. Yeah, basically ready. Well, they prioritize based on the date that the time that they're supposed to be executed, less the current time. So the higher execution happens. I'll ever think about it. Need to have a chat with JT about some of the task stuff, the background task stuff that I've done as well.